think my first 5 calls I piffed, and our close rate's like 58% at the moment. So pretty good start to things. Just based on, it's somebody in my network, so I wanted to make sure I was doing right by them. So that's a win.
Nice stuff. Mr. Josh, are we?
How we
Josh!
How we doing? Happy Sunday.
Oh, yeah, let's spin it.
Happy Sunday.
Well, where are you calling from today?
I'm in Seattle. From the Seattle area.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Are you traveling somewhere?
What was that?
Are you traveling somewhere in the next few weeks?
Nope, staying around. I'm here.
Perfect. Let's see.
Yeah.
If you're not muted, please mute yourself.
Got a good amount of people on here. This is awesome.
Yeah, so we don't hear an echo. We'll begin in a sec. So, long awaited. Mr. Josh in the flesh. How would you introduce yourself?
Just someone who wants to help people like me. Someone who's trying to help people that were where I was probably 5 years ago. And someone who's building an empire. So if you want to join in, this could be fun. Yeah, that's introduce myself. Doing big things.
Nice stuff. And let's start from the beginning. Like, how did you start entrepreneurship? What was your first job?
First job ever?
Yeah.
First job. I think I was 14 years old and I started a lawn care business, mowing lawns and stuff like that. So all the neighbors in my neighborhood, they all wanted me to mow their lawn, and so I charged them about 20 an hour, and I paid my high school buddies like 10 an hour. we had a little business going. Didn't make me much, but I learned a little bit about business. That was number one, man. That was a long time ago. Jeez,
what happened after that?
Yeah, only up from here. After that, I worked at a grocery store. Didn't like that. Quit within like 6 months of that. I was like, yeah, not for me. And then I ended up just saying, I want to be in business from here on out. The only other job I've ever had, I was working for Microsoft for a while, where I was planning their events for them. They have these huge events of like 50, 60,000 people, and they need someone to coordinate and plan it. So I did enjoy that job, but I also realized I'd rather, I hate corporate. I'd rather be my own boss and move fast, because with corporate, you ask them something, and like, yeah, we'll get around to it. And then 6 months later, they vote on it. And then they're finally like, okay, you can try this new thing. And you're like, it's not how I want to live my life, man. I want to keep building. So ever since then, I've been on this journey, and obviously it worked out pretty well. And now I'm hoping to go even further.
Nice. So, in this remote online high ticket space, you started as a humble setter, right?
Oh my gosh, started as a setter. Yeah.
Now we're here.
Now we're here. It was fun though, man. So I started off as a setter. I went through. Anyone here? First of all, is everyone here in the high ticket space? Is everyone in some kind of sales world or something? Yeah. So basically, I don't know. I know Jay Daniel knows this. Him and I started in the same group. You guys remember Taylor Welch? You guys remember that guy? I don't know if you guys know that guy. But yeah, started off in his course in the high tickets. Well, actually, before him, I actually was a closer first, but I worked for this group called what are they called in Magic? They're kind of like they're almost like an MLM. But I broke the system because they kept saying, hey, get your friends and family involved. And I was like, nope, I took Ty Lopez's marketing course. So I did Facebook ads trying to get these leads and closed a few of those. Realized how hard marketing is, and I said I wanted to get into sales. Went through Taylor Welch's program and landed a job. And this founder was like doing all the sales calls himself. He was doing all the setting, all the closing. He was doing all the marketing. He was struggling. He was making like $70K a month. So I came on board as a setter, and within like 2 months, he was like, can you just do all the sales? And that's how I got where I am now. Ended up setting and closing and ended up building his team. So that's how I got into this. Oh, Philip, you might be, I don't know if you're actually muted or not.
Yeah, I'm just a little bit. Tell me, how did you transition to being a venture capitalist and investor from there?
Oh, man. Yeah, so that was a goal. I realized really quickly that I was like, high ticket sales space is cool and all. I liked it. I made in the first year I was in high ticket sales, I made like, was like 170, 180,000. And back then that was a lot of money for me. Like, being honest with you, that was the most I'd ever touched in like 3 straight years. That was a lot of money for me. And I realized that as much as I love this, I looked at all the trainers out there, I looked at all the offers out there, and realized this is just as much of a hamster wheel as the 9 to 5 I just left. It's like, okay, they keep trying to sell you on more skills, more training. Now that you're at 5K a month, get to 10K a month. And once you're there, try and get to 20K a month. And once you're there, try and get to the leaderboard. And I realized no one is ever teaching you the exit strategy. Because I didn't get sales because I love sales. I do love talking with people. I love negotiating deals. But I didn't get into sales to be in sales for like 20 years, right? And no one teaches you that. So while I was setting and closing for this guy, I thought to myself, if I could learn how all these CEOs became CEOs, all these founders became founders, I want to get to their level. And the only thing they all had in common was they all had multiple investments, right? So I was like, okay, well, let me make as much money as I can, and let me invest enough. As soon as I got into sales, my first goal was, how can I fire myself from sales? How can I have enough money coming in from other sources that I'm making 10, 20K a month without having to do a single sales call? And so that was my sole mission for about 3-4 years. And when I finally got there, I realized that I didn't want to stop. I was like, okay, I have freedom, and that's actually not what I wanted. I like influence. I like building things. And now that you have money, now that you're at a place where you have financial freedom, now you can determine who you want to be. And I realized my choice was I wanted to be someone with impact. And so that's how I decided to start my own first offer. And then from there, I was able to invest in boring businesses because I realized I didn't know jack about business yet. I just know how to sell. So I was like, I don't want to start some AI startup. So I decided to invest in super boring businesses owned by boomers, old guys who didn't know how to run a business, right? And I said, I can run it better than them. At the very least, if I can bring some marketing to the table, they're making about 500K a year, I can make that $1 million a year. And so that's what I ended up doing. And then I haven't stopped since. And now I'm at the point where I'm now looking for help because I run 12 businesses. I own 12. And I'm like, I want to have over 100. And I can't do it on myself. So now I'm always looking to say, how can I teach other people who are like me to make enough money, to have enough skills to actually become a business owner? That's kind of why we're here. So that's the long story short that answers your question, Bill.
Tell me, is laundromat still the most like sexy business? That's like boring business that everybody wants to buy.
Laundromats are good. Laundromats are good, but everyone wants a laundromat now because Cody Sanchez and a lot of people made it popular. So it's kind of now the new Airbnb. It's the new AI, right? So I think some easy ones are like car washes are great. I own a few of those. Cleaning businesses. I own like 5 cleaning companies. We just clean people's homes. I haven't cleaned a single person's home. I just run the operations. That always makes 6 figures. On a painting business, a landscaping business. Like these are really boring stuff, guys, but it's more than I ever made closing at my highest close rate, over 56%. And I'm like, I'm still working versus this. I'm like, oh, sweet, the business made money, and then you can sell it and flip it. So those are all the sexy ones or the most unsexy ones, if that makes sense.
Ooh, so many questions open, but let's start, from the beginning.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think? What separates the top 1% of sales pros from the rest? And then we can go to the business owners.
Oh, totally. Oh, this is why I love doing this. Top 1% sales pros are the people that are not doing tactics. They're not studying and investing in tactics. And again, I love all the ones out there. Like Bill Walsh's objection box is really good. But if that's what you're studying, you're not going to actually ever build the skills to escape the game. So the people that I've studied are actually good at negotiating. They actually know psychology. They study human behavior, right? They study like right now, and I don't know many people here, but I'm starting to pick up when people look up versus when they look down, when they look left versus when they look right, pick up body languages. If you can study how people actually interact and behave and what people truly want, you'll realize that we're doing sales kind of backwards. So the top 1% of people aren't actually trying to sell. They're actually really trying to negotiate this deal by not selling you something, which is really not taught. Sales trainers don't like that because it eliminates their courses, right? But I don't even know if that's really the right answer for what you guys, if that makes any sense. But that's learning human psychology, learning exactly how to close a deal. And then learning how to be a CEO, treating it like you're a business owner, not treating it like you're an employee. I don't see a lot of closers doing that anymore, or at all.
Oh. And tell me, like, how do you develop the resilience and mental discipline to sustain, high performance in sales and in business in general? Because there's a lot of ups and downs.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. You need that resilience. But it's easier to have resilience when you have a plan. That's the only thing that was like, I don't think I'm actually any better than anyone else. Like, I don't think I was any better than any of the class that I graduated with from Taylor Welch's course. I think we're all about the same. So I'm not like smarter or better. Oh, shoot. What's this? Can you guys still hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. My computer froze. There we go. I'm back. I'm back. So anyways, yeah, I don't want to go rambling off here, but I don't think I'm actually any better than anyone. I think the only difference is I have a real plan of saying, okay, my main goal is to think like a CEO. And as a CEO, I'm going to try and fire myself from this sales role as fast as humanly possible. And so it's easy to stay disciplined when I'm like, oh, I'm on a 3-year plan. I know what I need to do today to get where I want to be tomorrow, to get where I want to be next year. So,
great mindset. And like, what daily habits or routines, have had the biggest impact on your success? What would you say?
Feedback loops. I get better every day. As I get better every minute if I can. Like literally every minute of every day, I'm trying to think, how can I have done that better? at least every hour. That's the stuff a lot of people don't do. And it's hard because it's easy to get lazy and be like, all right, cool, made money today. For me, I'm literally like, okay, what would a CEO have done? Right? If Jeff Bezos were in my chair, would he have done anything differently? Okay, down to what I'm reading, down to what I'm eating, down to everything possible. Now, when you have all these feedback loops constantly, you're improving at like 10x the rate of everyone else. Which again, I don't see very often, which is why the top 1% become the top 1%. But everyone's on this call because they are that. They think this way. You're on this call on a Sunday because you want to get better. So I think that's a start.
Definitely. And like, were the biggest mindset shifts, that remote closers need to make to scale beyond that 10, 20K a month, aside from, being a CEO?
Biggest mindset shift? Don't sacrifice the important for the urgent. It is really easy to look at the problems I have today and say, well, I'll get to my goals later, my dreams later. Today, I just got to raise my close rate, or my sales manager's on me about this thing. Or today, I want to be better at closing. Don't ever sacrifice thinking about and planning out the long term, because that's how we get stuck. And then all of a sudden, one day of like, I'll do that tomorrow becomes like, okay, I've been closing for 2 years, I've been offer hopping. I'm still not making significantly more money than it was a year ago. Right? I just don't know who I am. So that mindset shift of like everything must be done with intention. It's your activities may not change, but you will find yourself progressing. And I think, again, not even closers, I think just people in general, if we don't do that, that's how we end up getting stuck, right? And then we get desperate and we turn to, okay, let me pay for something, some kind of mentorship, try and fix the situation I'm in, rather than sitting down and saying, how do I get from point A to point B? So again, it may be like preaching to the choir because everyone here is probably a high performer, but it is something important. I do this every day.
And tell me, you mentioned loops. Like, do you have a mentor, or are you like self-assessing your performance, by yourself most of the time?
Great. Oh, great. Bit of both. Always have a mentor. I always do. Because if I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm not going to grow. Right? If someone's not teaching me, if I'm not following someone who's where I want to be, I'm not going to get there, right? So, but myself as well. I have to be disciplined enough where every hour I check it off and I grade myself. Okay, did I act like the person that's going to be 8-figure, Josh? Am I the person that has a $150 million net worth today? Was I or was I not? And what can I change? One thing. That's it. And what did I do well? Let me do that again next hour. Kind of like you guys probably do on sales calls, right? Where you're like, right before the next call, what objection did I miss? And what did I do well in discovery? Let me write that down so I do that the next call, right? Same thing with everything else, if that answers that question.
It does. And like, once closers are constantly making 10, 15K, like, what's the first smart move they should make with their money? Like, what would you say if you were to go back in time?
That's such a good, I wish I did this. Well, first things first, I'd have an emergency fund of at least 3 to 6 months, where if I wasn't closing 3 to 6 months or I was investing in something, I'd have my expenses paid for. And the next thing I would do, I would set aside probably $10,000 to maybe $20,000 to invest in 3 different things. I want something in real estate, which isn't going to make me rich, but it's not going to make me poor. I want something passive, and then I want something that I can sink my teeth into that's going to teach me how to become a business owner. So what I teach people, Jay Daniel and I teach people in our university, is we teach people, okay, if you're going to take a class, let's get you some kind of Airbnb or something in real estate to understand that game. And that should make you $2,000 to $5,000 a month, right? The next thing I would invest in is like some kind of e-commerce play, something passive. I invest in e-commerce stores now that are done for you, right? So I'm like, okay, good. In a year from now, I put in 10K, I'm making 100K a year. Well, a revenue, right? I'm probably making 20K in profit. And then I invest in like a cleaning company or something really boring. I'm like 2-3 hours a day, but I'm learning how to be a CEO. With those 3 investments, give me 18 months. I don't have to close another deal again. Right? Those things will just run. And then I keep flipping and going. So I don't know if that's the advice you're looking for, but that's where I would start.
And tell me, like, what are the biggest financial mistakes you see sales pro making with their commissions? When they see the big come in.
Not paying taxes is one, but I don't know if it's different for you guys than for me. Make sure you set that aside, because the IRS will bite you in the ass. But if that's not where you have a different country, then great. Set aside for taxes, and also blowing that money. Now, obviously, live your life, have fun. I mean, you're doing this you do you, right? But if you want to get out of the rat race, I highly suggest I put at least 50 to 75% of it away. If I can live off of 25% of that commission check, great. And if I can't, I better close some more, right? So that's what I would do. If you do that for a year, there's no move you cannot make. I could go get you a cleaning company, a painting company, e-commerce store, and an Airbnb if you just set aside 75% of your commissions for a year. You'll never have to close again. So that's my thoughts.
It's simple, but it's not easy.
Right, right. Simple but not easy. It's just not taught. People don't, they don't teach us this. They teach us, okay, let's invest in something else so you can launch your own sales offer. Right? Or let's invest in something else so you can raise your close rate next year. Like this is all good, but I didn't want to be here for 20 years, right? So
Yeah, no one does, just a vehicle. And like, how can someone strategically transition from being that high earning closer to an entrepreneur?
well, that's a good question. We'll start now. Well, learn one thing. If you're gonna invest in anything, invest by being around entrepreneurs, but don't just pay to be in a mastermind. I just do what they do. So right now, my mentor, I keep leveling up mentors. My mentor now, he manages, actually just leveled up. So my mentor from last year, he manages a $2 billion hedge fund, which is a lot of money, and he manages it, which is great. And to him, I'm asking him how to build my business. He's like, "Oh, that's so cute. You got like 12 businesses. That's awesome. You're making less than 100 mil. That's awesome, man. Like, good little entrepreneur." And I'm like, I like that though. I love that because I'm like, sweet. Can you teach me how to get to the $1 billion level? This year, I leveled up from him to a guy that manages $23 billion. He doesn't own 23 billion. He manages 23 billion. Okay, which is great though, because I'm like, how do I get to that level of portfolio, man? So the first thing I would do is, if you want to start leveling up, be around people like that. At least someone above that. Someone who's making at least 7 or 8 figures. That's the first thing I would do, right, to change. And then the second thing I would also do is just start looking at what investments can you make that could at least free up some of your time. So for example, if I'm making 10K a month, what investment can I make that would get me 2,500 a month? And now I can take away like a quarter of the sales calls. And now my time is free and I can invest more into that thing. That's what I would do. That's exactly what I did. Does that make sense?
Okay. And like, what's the key to scaling from closer to manager to offer owner successfully?
Oh, now that one is tougher because it's not about skills. This one you have to be good with people. I was a really bad sales manager at first because I thought, hey, to be a closer, you got to be kind of a hard ass. Everyone be like me. I was closing at 56%. You better just do what I did. It's not how it works. So if you want to become a CEO, you want to become a wealthy person, skills get you to 6 figures. Relationships get you to 7 figures, right? And then systems get you to 8 figures. And then again, network gets you to 9 figures. That's usually how it goes. So if you want to get to manager level, or at least offer owner, really, really learn what drives people. How do I motivate someone? How do I align myself with their vision? How do I find the right talent? And how do I make sure that I keep them happy, keep them rewarded? And how do I train someone? It's one thing to close, it's another thing to teach. I know a lot of good closers who I've never placed in a manager role. I know a lot of good managers who are not the best closers. But if you want to be both and become a CEO, you have to do both. So learning how to switch those gears and say, okay, how can I become a teacher? Have a little bit of patience with someone, recognize where they need to go, and recognize the bottlenecks. Kind of like in sales, but
What should closers look for when considering equity or partnership opportunities?
yeah. Well, first of all, know your worth, know your value. Right now, we're all taught like, hey, take the 10% commission, all that stuff, which is fine. But for example, right now, what I do this often. I find a company that's doing less than 150K a month. I come on board and I say, listen, I have done this for many, many years. So what I will do is create the sales processes that will allow you to have a business where you never have to take a sales call again. I will create all these things for you. I will hire, I will train, I'll take all the brunt of it if we make mistakes. In exchange, I like a piece of the company, or at least I want to get at least 15 to 20% of this money coming in. And basically all I do is drop the math. If I just increase you by 20%, right? If I get you 20% more revenue, how much money are you taking home? No, what if I got you that revenue and you're not taking any sales calls? Sweet. Is that worth 20% of the company to you? Because if so, then I can basically make you free. I'm your freedom ticket. I've done this a lot. That's what I would do, right? Know your worth. Know how to negotiate. But have a track record. Be good at what you do first, right?
And how do you personally vet businesses and opportunities, and decide what to invest in next?
Oh, well, that's for everyone to kind of decide on your own. Like for me, I have a master plan, so every move I make has to fit into that master plan. So just because a business will make money does not mean I'm going to go with that business, because my public perception does have to align with that. So that's a little bit different of an answer. That being said, for you guys, I would vet it based off of, is there actually a need there? Just like I do with the boring businesses. I don't look for the best. I look for the third or fourth best. I look for one that's struggling. And I say, is there anything that I have in my tool belt that I can bring to the table in exchange for equity that would raise the value of that business? So I'm looking for these coaches or these agencies, or in my case, boring businesses, where I'm like, hey, that guy doesn't really know everything that I know. This is good, because if I just bring a little bit of that skill to the table, that is literally worth equity, which is so much more than just 10% commissions. If that answers that question. And that's not super specific, but that's what I'm looking for.
And like, what do most people get wrong about wealth building and financial freedom? Like, what would you say?
What most people get wrong.
Uh-huh.
Well, wealth it's a finite resource, but it's almost infinite. So just because there are multi-billionaires does not mean that they're taken from you. Right? In fact, they're probably creating the opportunities. So if you want to build wealth, it's actually easier to solve rich people's problems. That's where I would start. Most people say, let me level up first, right? Let me learn this and this and this, and then get to this guy. If you solve rich people's problem, you make a lot more money than trying to solve a lot of broke people's problems. Right, so that's the first thing I think a lot of people get wrong. And the other thing too is that you don't actually have to work so hard to get it. You still have to work hard, but you really have to work a lot smarter. Where are all the people who are not talking on YouTube about what they do in their offer? What are they actually investing in? Because there's hundreds, probably thousands of people that are moving like this. People like me who don't even share about it, and they may own 20, 30, 40 companies. What are they doing? And it's not necessarily launching the next, hey, I closed 20K a month, so I'm going to launch a sales training offer, right? Or like, oh, I'm going to invest in AI or e-com. Those are all good, but everyone's doing that, and it's really, really tough. Find the easy wins. It's actually okay to take the path of least resistance at first.
Mm-hmm. And how do you think remote sales is evolving, and where do you see the biggest opportunities ahead?
Oh man, it's evolving. Well, first of all, prospects are sick and tired of all the tactics that they've been shoved down their throats. So if we're sounding like everyone that we sounded like 2 years ago, probably not going to go so well. If we're trying to combat people's objections and handle objections, probably not going to go so well. If we're not studying marketing, if we're not finding a way to be refreshing, it's probably not going to go so well. Now, most of you will probably succeed regardless. Because again, if you're on this call, you're probably top 1%, at least top 5% of what you do, most likely. But I would say people are getting sick and tired of it, right? People are getting sick and tired of the same old ways. So people will always go back to what has worked for centuries. People that know psychology, people that know how to close and negotiate a deal, people that actually align the prospect with my offer is aligned with where you want to go, which is a whole different brand of sales than most people are teaching. That's where I think the space is headed.
Okay, and now, if you had to start over from zero today, like what's the exact roadmap you follow to rebuild?
That's such a good question. Well, I would start off as a setter or closer, and I would start off by building relationships right away. Networking with people like you. I'd probably join a group like this. I'd probably do some role plays with you guys and figure out what you're reading, get into the group with you guys, encourage you guys, get on a fitness plan with you, whatever it is to just build a relationship. And I would slowly find an offer, something, right? Well, now I would find an offer that I know is struggling, and I would come on board for equity. But if I didn't have that plan in my playbook, I would come on board and say, look, I'll close for you. I'm not a setter or a closer. I'm a representative of you. And most CEOs don't want a sales rep. I don't want to hire people. I want a clone of me, someone that can just do what I don't want to do. That's how I always got these roles. I'll come on board and say, whatever you need me to do, I'm going to get it done. I'm your Harvey Specter. I'm your fixer. Whatever you need me to do, I'll get it done. So let's go make some money, right? And then I would do that first. And probably I'm earning 15% commissions in the first year, right? I'll do that for about a year, year and a half, save up my 6 months emergency fund, save up 10 to 20K. So about a year, year and a half. I would get my disciplines back in, right? Am I waking up at the same time? Am I drinking enough water? Am I reading the right things? And for a straight 12 months, can I do that and save up my capital? I'll probably have 6 figures saved, right? Then I go right back into what I'm doing now. Let me find a passive investment like an e-commerce store. Let me find an Airbnb or some kind of real estate play. And let me find a boring business I can run. And within a year of that, year 2, now I'm making the same amount of money, making 7 to 8K a month, right? Probably 10K a month from those 3. I can now quit sales or have both. That's what I would do.
Mm-hmm. And like, what's the biggest limiting belief that holds remote sales pro back from breaking that 10K a month?
Oh, that's a good one. Biggest limiting belief. It's tough because everyone's got their own belief inside of them that stops them. And it usually comes down to, if I don't do this kind of behavior, I'm not good enough. Right? So usually people, I realize they struggle with negotiation, they struggle with objection handling. It's because they believe something about themselves. And they say, ooh, if I push too hard here, or if I don't push soft enough, whatever it is, then I am not good enough, because that's something that their parents told them, or whatever happened when they were a kid. We're all kind of screwed up from when we were kids at some point, right? But to get over that, the biggest thing is, biggest limiting belief, I think, is like, oh, let me just kind of do the process that everyone else is doing. Let me just do what everyone else is saying in this space to do. Versus saying, what do actual successful, how do they negotiate deals? How does Elon Musk negotiate deals, right? What happens at the boardroom level? What's going on there? How do psychologists and therapists do it? They get truth out of me, and I don't know how they did that, right? I want to study other areas other than the people that are selling me a course in this space. if that makes sense. That's limitably, most coaches are like, nah, I don't need that, I'll get it later. Right now, I just need to get the objection box and I need to pound out this objection. Like, that's great, but you're missing the foundations of it. So hope that makes sense.
Okay, and how do you stay hungry and keep leveling up after you had, some big milestone?
Yeah. Well, if you don't know where you're going, every victory will be tempting for you to stay there, right? So if you started off with this of like, I want to get to 10K a month, and that's your goal, it's not going to work out well. It's like people that are working out. I want to lose 10 pounds. Terrible freaking goal. Never ever say that to me, because once you lose the 10 pounds, you're done. You're not going to keep going. And also, every day that you don't lose that 10 pounds, every day that you're not 10 pounds lighter, you think you're a failure. Rather, I would say come up with a goal that's like every single day I'm going to work out for the next year. And then after that, I'm going to become the healthiest version of me. And I'm going to be doing this in 3 years, and I'm going to be doing this in 5 years. So I'm always moving towards something that is not just, I call it lagging indicators. You guys know what that is? Leading versus lagging indicators? You guys heard that phrase before?
For the guys that didn't, can you break it up?
Okay.
Break it down.
Lagging indicators is what most people think goals are. A lagging indicator is if I do the actions, then the lagging indicator is I will gain 10 pounds if I lift weights and eat 150 grams of protein every day. Most people put the lagging indicator as the goal. I want to gain 10 pounds. Leading indicators are the things that lead to the result. And that's what successful people count as goals. So when I have a New Year's resolution, it's I'm going to go to the gym at 6 a.m. 5 days a week for the next 365 days. I don't care how much weight I gain or lose. I'm going to do the action. And I'm going to end up hitting my goal faster than most people. Does that make sense? So that's how you stay hungry, because you're constantly moving towards something specific. And that's how CEOs do it. Or else we'd all be like, okay, look, we're rich. This is great. We're making money. What do we do next? We'd never keep building. So hope that answers.
It does. A great book, Atomic Habits. They speak about it, identity versus a lot of other things. And what's the best way to handle burnout?
Oh, that's such a good question. My controversial take is that there isn't really such a thing. Now, burnout is real, but most people think burnout is because they're doing too much output. I'm doing too much, when really burnout comes from the wrong inputs. You're not taking care of yourself enough. Because I can go 24 hours a day for 3 straight weeks if I'm inputting enough of the things that will keep me going. It's not sustainable, right? But so inputs are very, very important. I would ask you guys, I mean, as successful as we all are, again, I don't know the level of this group, but I'm sure most of you guys are more successful than the average Joe because you're here. You're in sales, first of all. You're ambitious, and you're on a Google Meet on Sunday trying to get better. That's pretty impressive, right? Most people aren't thinking this way. Most people are thinking about how can I just avoid loss? How can I just lose small versus trying to win big? Practically, what that means is most people, even as successful as us, are literally not even, if you guys aren't doing affirmations every morning that are specifically designed to counteract the little voice in your head, it's not going to work out for you. That little voice in your head is going to win every time. If you're not doing actions that prove to your brain that you are a successful, disciplined person, if you don't clearly define what the next level version of you looks like, the little voice in your head is going to win. If we're not doing those things, then we're going to burn out. And those are the little things, right? Just professional athletes, if we're not stretching, if we're not getting our shots up right before, if we're not eating enough protein. No, but when I face off another professional, he's going to beat me every time. And so hope that makes sense. I can get more into that if you guys want to. But that's what my recommendation is.
And what's the biggest lesson you learned from failure in your journey? I assume there were a lot of ups and downs.
That's a good one. Several lessons. Plan for everything. Have a strategy. Don't just go into something. That being said, don't overplan either. Analysis paralysis is real. We see it in our prospects, right? But it happens with us too. But not having a plan, I have a contingency plan for everything. Like if someone were to burst into the door right now with a gun, I have a contingency plan for that. I wouldn't overthink things that way, but I'm saying in business, in your moves, if you're going to make a move, never wage a war unless you have already won the war. That's what I always recommend to people. I never wage a battle unless I already know that I've won with overwhelming force. I make that mistake by saying, let me just test my luck in the markets. I'm good enough to recover if I put my money out there. Not smart. Second biggest lesson is people and relationships will always bring you the most revenue. So relationships matter more than revenue. You can really learn how to be a value add. When people ask me what I do, I'm always like, well, I aspire to be a genie. You have 3 wishes, I could probably make it happen. And that's what gives me value. So now we can negotiate. So learning how to do that for people will take you so much further than being in this, even a bigger rat race, still a rat race of like, well, I got to beat this next guy on the leaderboard at my sales job. Hope it makes sense. Now we're talking big topics. We can get practical, but hope it makes sense.
Now, question for Mr. JD. You can unmute. What do you think is the difference between a good closer and a true killer in remote sales?
A good closer versus a killer.
Yes.
I think. So I mean, bro, a lot of it comes back to what you do, right? But I think it's more so like who you are and where you're going. You know, like, because, bro, what is a closing call? It's a conversation. You're talking to somebody. You know, if you don't have depth to your character, bro, and what you're pushing for, if you're not like good, you've reviewed your calls, right? Like you know where you've fallen, you're not gonna be that good. But if you can get all the little tactics on top of your own like mental shit, like dialed, those are the guys that kill it.
Mm-hmm. And now for Mr. Kaleb, are you with us as well?
Yeah, I'm here.
Now, question for you. How do you transition from being a top performer to leading a team effectively? What would you say?
Yeah, I think picking up on Josh's point, it's interesting. Just because of, obviously the stuff that I've run, like we've got somebody right now that just joined our program, our coaching, and it's interesting because they've obviously got the characteristics of a killer salesperson. But I think it's, you have to really, I don't know, I never really had a hard time with it, but Josh put it really nicely. Is understanding like how to motivate, lead, and inspire a team. I think the first piece is just understanding a team dynamic and understanding, what it means to be a leader and having a specific frame. Because if you're so used to being the player and not giving direction to people, it can be very uncomfortable. I think that's kind of the first level to it, and then the second one I think is knowing how to actually influence a group of people in indirect ways. Like one thing I was talking about is like if your team is having a slump, you don't have to just keep confronting and calling everybody out on the fact that they're not performing. It's like find an indirect way to do an exercise that's going to just give the energy to the team that's needed. So that way they're able to, see past it, like go over a call where you're overcoming fear, because that's just naturally inspiring and motivating to watch and witness that. And that might be enough to get people out of the way. So, but I think it's, it has to be in you. I think some people aren't really capable of it because it's just, once more, I don't want to just keep back with what Josh said, but yeah, I just don't think some people have that temperament within them to have the amount of patience needed. You need to have an incredible amount of patience and just empathy. I mean, my kind of mindset for being a sales manager was always, I'm just constantly trying to relate back to how this person got to where they are and what they're feeling now from when I felt it myself. And I just say what I did during that time that got me through it. And most of the time that works. It's like, yeah, I get what it's like to have a slump. I get what it's like to have my sleep go. I get what it's like to, what I did to get me past. And if they hear your stories, that always works really well for me as far as managing a team.
Thank you. Thank you. Now back to Josh. Like, what's your take on branding, personal branding in 2025?
Oh, wasn't this just a hot topic on like Facebook or something lately?
It always is pretty much like
Yeah,
sales
some people
versus
going at it.
networking versus branding versus whatever.
Yeah. Well, I think your personal you have a personal brand whether you know it or not, right? Whether you're doing something or not. If you're not doing something, that is your brand. For me, personal branding has made me millions of dollars. Having these relationships and networks has made me millions of dollars in revenue, right? So it's very important. That being said, just like with anything, if that's what we're relying on, then it's a crutch, and I'm also not a high performer then. I need to have many fishing lines out there. But your personal brand, I mean, I take it very seriously. I look at it. Now, I'm not going to judge you for it if we have a conversation and I see who you are, then great. But I will tell you, it's going to get you in doors that you wouldn't be able to get in just by usual networking, right? Personal branding. And there's a very specific way to do it because I can also tell who you're watching and who you're learning from and where your level is at based off of how you talk about your own accomplishments, which is not a good thing or a bad thing. I can just tell kind of where you're at. And people above me can now tell too, right? So I think it's very, very important. Should not be left out to the side. And it's also should not be the end all be all. You should still be doing the basics, the fundamentals.
Okay, and like what's your personal wealth building philosophy like? How do you think about money? What's money for you?
What is money for me? Dollars are just soldiers to me. I have a mission. If I don't have a mission, then dollars will become something that kills me in the end, right? Money will become something that I'm chasing, and now I'm addicted to it just like anything else. If I have a mission, these dollars are just soldiers for me. I need a certain amount to get the job done, and their sole job is to go and capture more capital for me. That's how I see it. So if I have enough money and I use it wisely, I'm saying if I'm sending 30,000 of my soldiers, my troops out there, they better be getting me 100,000 troops back and taking territory. And there's smart ways to do that. And I don't I just send them out there to die, right? So that's how I definitely see it. And so for me, like when I'm back closing, got my nice Jaguar, I got my nice penthouse apartment. I just sent those soldiers to die. Now I love the lifestyle; it was great, but did I actually accomplish my mission? Now I'm realizing no, because I was just getting liabilities and get a single asset. So I was just burning my soldiers. I take that. I don't like that, right? So that's my wealth building philosophy. Everyone's got a different mission. It doesn't have to be building an empire, but at the same time, what's going to sustain you and your family one day? Making sure those soldiers are fighting for you. That's my philosophy.
Very great example and analogy. Like, how do you decide when to reinvest in your skills versus start allocating capital elsewhere? You mentioned those three big ones.
Yeah. Are you asking me?
Yeah.
Yeah, when? Well, first of all, if I'm not making at least 6 figures or 100,000, well, for me, if I can live off of 25%, then I know that I can now start investing into other things beyond just skills. But if I can't live off 25%, if I'm making 8K a month and I can't live off of, what would that be, 2, right? And I got to keep investing in skills to get to the point where I can live off of 25%, maybe 30. Okay? And then this is not a rule, but this is what most successful people are doing, right? So once I'm at that point, maybe it was 6 figures, once I'm making over $100,000 and $120,000 a year, I can now take some of the money I was investing in skills and redirect those soldiers into investing in assets. But I always invest in skills, always, even now.
And what's the most underrated investment sales pro should be making early on?
Therapy. Get a that counselor, someone to figure out what makes you tick. If you don't know, something I always ask myself is, if there was a clone of me who was like 10 minutes younger than me, would that clone be able to beat me? If the answer is yes, I need to go see a therapist and figure out what makes myself tick, because that's going to beat me on sales calls, where I'm going to encounter prospects that have something that's reflected in me that I'm not going to know how to handle. I'm going to encounter problems and hit a rut, and I'm not going to know how to overcome it because I'm not used to losing, I'm not used to winning, or whatever it is. So getting a counselor is actually really, really, really helpful. I still have one now, and they're called a performance coach now. But the billionaires that I spend time with, the little time that I do spend with them, they all spend most of their free time with their performance coaches, trying to tune their mind. Because to them, this is their engine, this is their machine, right? So.
And how do you balance fast income from sales versus long-term wealth creation that's boring at the beginning?
Oh yeah, well I have a bit of both. You want to hedge your bets. I always have some fast income, some liquid coming in. And for now, again, like I said, if you can't live off 25% of your income yet, everything should be fast income. Do as much as you can, because there's so much money to be made just by helping people make a decision. That's all we're doing, right? Helping people make the right decision, usually, right? So that I would invest in mainly until I can live off 25%. Then I want to have, a quarter of my investment is long term and 75% is short term. And I slowly chip away at that until all of it is passive.
And how do you structure your businesses so you don't, they don't require you to be involved, 24/7, just like you said, you want to get out of the operations.
Yeah, are you asking me again?
Yeah, the guy behind it, man.
Okay, because we have some superstars on here, J. Daniel and Kaleb. I'm glad to meet you, man. It seems like you're really smart at this. But yeah, I would say how I structure it. Well, again, I have a plan beforehand. I have a business plan. I know the principles of business that I can put in any situation. And I'll create systems before I even start. Like I said, I want to win the war before I even wage it. I would never go into a fight saying it's 50-50. I know exactly what we're going to do. And when the bullets start flying and things change, I know how to pivot because I have a plan. I can now change that plan. So I do that first, and then I have systems. I automate and delegate or eliminate everything. Something you should remember, even as a closer. What can I automate? What can I delegate? What can I eliminate that is not the core competency of mine? And then I find good people to manage those systems. So I have a plan, I have systems, and I find good people to manage the systems.
How do you find good people? Now it seems like, next impossible thing. Everybody wants A players.
That's true. Well, I mean, look to your left, look to your right, look up and down. There's people on this call who all of us here will probably one day be the future of industry. Most likely. We're all young here, pretty much, right? We're all younger. Like no one here is 60 years old and running a hedge fund yet, right? So we are the future. We're going to be the ones that are building. That's how old money did it. For the first time in human history, we don't have to be old money to have the same privileges that the 1% have. The only thing that will stop us is if we buy into the lie that we have to do it our own. Individualism, where I have to just do it myself and everyone here's my competition. Yes, to a degree, but at the top we collaborate. These are how you find your A players, making relationships here. I found my A players after the last 5 years of just helping people in sales. A lot of the setters that trained are now running some of my businesses. Right? A lot of people I trained. And then Jed Daniel and I, we did intentionally. We have a university, so we're trying to farm people. I'm literally like, okay, is anyone making 10K a month? Join a university. Let's get you a business. And it helps me if you become rich. Please, I need your help because I can't run more than 12 businesses. So
Sure, I'll drop this will be on YouTube, so I'll drop the link in
Sure.
the chat. Also, if you wanna jump from the second from 10K above, you have also, I'll drop Kaleb's link as well over there. And tell me, like, what's the number one lesson you learned from scaling multiple businesses? Is there any pattern?
It's a lot simpler than you think. Yeah, the main lesson is focus on the things that matter. And that always comes down to lead gen, client retention. Can I get people coming back over and over? And so I guess the biggest lesson is pick businesses that are simple, that are easy to scale. A cleaning business is great. A car detailing business is great. For all you guys are in the high ticket space. You are so sophisticated compared to the people that I do business with. Right? You guys could probably come into a business with the right plan and run any of these boomers out of town, and they want you to. Literally saying, I want to retire. I have no plan to do so. So I guess the similarity is focus on lift activities and make that a way of life. Don't just make that a business play. Everything that I do, I want to do very efficiently. Efficiency really matters at scale. So every move I make, just like if I'm fighting, I don't want to just throw a bunch of punches, right? I want to make sure that every move I make is calculated and it's going exactly where it needs to go, and that's how you can handle probably 10 times the amount you think you can. So I hope that makes sense.
Like, what does true financial freedom mean to you right now and 5 years ago? Like, what would you say?
5 years ago, I just wanted to make 10K a month, bro. And it's still great. At the same time, I could go back to that now and be just fine. I'm financially free forever because I can live at 25% of my means. Now, for me, financial freedom is more about my time because I have a specific mission in mind. I want to build this very specific empire at a very large scale. So for me, financial freedom is more about the people I have in charge. Can I train captains and can I make them very wealthy? Can I train people to become wealthy? If that's the case, then I can now have an empire. That's what freedom now means to me. Back then, it was just about me. And 10K a month, for most people, should be, I'd say 12K a month. For most of us, we should be fine. We should be good.
And if you could give one piece of advice to your younger self, like, what would it be?
Stop being distracted. Stop being distracted with all the girls and the cars and the stuff that you thought you wanted, man. If you want to be great or you want to be free, pick one and do that. And then experience delayed gratification will save you so much heartache and also get you there faster. I'm now 29 years old. I really think I could have been rich or wealthy 5 years ago. I'm now able to manage 12 businesses. I am now dealing with hedge fund guys. If I had not been distracted and said, do I actually want to be financially free? I better act like it. Just for 5 years.
Any books that you want to recommend, podcasts, habits, whatever?
Yeah, a few. Ready, Fire. If you're looking to build a business, Ready, Fire, Aim. Ready, Fire, Aim is a great book. It was written a few years ago, or more than a few years ago, so it's a little bit outdated, but it still works. You guys have all probably read Never Split the Difference. It's a very good one to read. But I would actually read that, like read it, like study it, and then look into him and study how does, listen, like my admonition to you guys, not admonition, encouragement to you guys is if human being can do it, if someone can negotiate a hostage situation, you can too. You guys are top 10%, probably top 5%, probably top 1% just by being on this call. So if someone can go out there and do something extraordinary, right? Like go negotiate with a hostage situation, you probably can too. It's just about training smart enough to get there. So I would really look into those kind of skills, if that makes sense. Study those people.
Makes sense. We have a few questions. Mr. Milosh, you're the first one.
First of all, Josh, J. Daniel, Kaleb, nice to meet you. I'm glad to be here. My question would be, what advice helped you improve the most in high-ticket sales?
I was doing sales calls wrong, where I thought I need to get someone's pain points, I need to get their goals, and I need to widen the gap between the two, and that equals a sale. That works 25 to 33% of the time. I was closing at 88% when I realized it's less about that and more about actually take this with a grain of salt. Please don't just do this on sales calls. And listen to your sales managers. They do know better, right? They do know what they're doing. But I would say when I try to not sell someone, and I literally present myself as like, listen, my job is to protect your money like a Rottweiler. right? I'm like a sheepdog, and I'm going to protect your money against a bad investment. And I'm the only thing protecting you from this company taking your money. That's why there's me here instead of a website. That being said, if this is the right move, I'm not letting you leave without what you need. And now I frame it as, now I'm asking I just did this sales training with Jay Daniel the other day. I said, every time I'm on a sales call with someone, I act as if it's my own mother and she's asking me to cut off her right hand. I'm going to ask questions the same way. Why? What attracted you to this solution? Please, you got to tell me. And I actively on sales calls try to figure out a way to say, is there any other way besides this? Are you sure you're ready for this? I'm asking you because you're about to invest money into this thing. I'm telling you now this is a sales call. I'm going to pitch you at the end of this call. So let's get that out the way. I'm not going to do it if I don't think this is the right move. So before I cut off your right hand, can you please tell me why you need this? If your answer is, it sounded cool, I'm going to make more money. I'm going to tell you that's a really bad answer. Please treat your money with respect. Treat yourself with some respect. You earned that money, man. I'm going to take it from you if you need it today. I'm not going to take it from you if you're not sure. So let's have a conversation about how this can fit into your life. I'm going to ask the same questions as you guys are probably asking, but my frame is completely opposite. And I'm telling you it's an 88% close rate because these people are now like, they already know they need this. And I'm just taking the sales out of the sales call. And I'm literally almost playing devil's advocate. I'm like, are you sure you need this? Mom, you want me to cut your right hand off? Can't you do chemotherapy or something? Is there cancer in your hand? Is there something else we can do? Why me? Why me? What's going to keep you going when the pain starts to hit? How are you going to be sure that you're going to not refund or quit when I start to do this thing? Okay, well, if this is going to save your life, now that you told me, I have a responsibility to not let you off this call until I save your life. So we're going to do this. Hope that makes sense. Again, take it with a grain of salt. Listen to your sales managers. Don't just do that. But I'm telling you, that's the best advice I ever got.
Yeah, it makes sense. Who did you learn that from?
Who was that? It was a performance coach for someone that was helping, like this performance coach, her whole job was to help these like stock traders make decisions. And she was like, they're thinking of it all wrong. They're always trying to go into these sales. And they're trying to convince their prospect to put money in with them, as opposed to saying, I'm here to defend you. I'm here to defend you against a bad investment. But it seems like you need this today. So you got to convince me why I'm going to take your money today. Because I don't want the pressure, the fiscal responsibility of taking your money and it was the wrong choice. I learned it from her. It was great.
That helps. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Ben, you had a question.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Josh, for coming on. Learned so much today.
Sure.
A question I have is how do you kind of deal with self-doubt and self-limiting beliefs as well?
When you say self-doubt, is it in your abilities? Is it in who you are? What's the self-doubt really saying to you, do you think?
I'd say in your ability, yeah.
Well, I would say two things. One, I take everything with objective truth. So it's I don't call it self-doubt. If my skills aren't where they need to be, it's not self-doubt, it's just truth. And that's okay. And two, I would say I separate my performance, I separate my income, and I separate my abilities from my identity. I can be crap at this. I'm still a phenomenal person. Top 1%. Just because I failed does not mean I'm not top 1%.
Yeah.
Because I missed a game-winning shot does not mean I'm not a good shooter. Self-doubt hits when you attach your identity to the outcome of what you're doing. So trying to separate.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So almost treat it as if it's like a plant you're growing. If it grows or dies, it doesn't make you better or worse of a person, but I'm going to grow that thing. And then the second thing I would do is figure out what actually, and this is a longer conversation at some point, figure out what that little voice is actually saying to you and try and say things that are the opposite to yourself and then do things that prove to your mind the opposite of that little voice. The little voice is telling you, you suck, you're not good enough, you're lazy. Now I'm going to say, no, I'm the hardest working person in the room. I'm the most diligent, the most disciplined, the most capable person in every room I walk in. And then what I'm going to do every single day is I'm going to make my bed. I'm going to take an exactly 12.5-minute shower. I'm going to stretch. I'm going to drink exactly 8 glasses of water. And every day I'm strong. I'm like, see? I am.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's small advice, but I hope that makes sense.
100%. Thanks so much.
Yeah, I'm not trying to hog the answers too. We have Kaleb on here. We got Jay Daniel too. And Philip.
Mr. Singer, you had a question. You need to go. So I'm going to let you skip the line only this time.
My question is a follow-up on Milos's question. So, Josh, did you ever say that my job is to protect you against the bad investment, or you just phrase it in this way?
Not even a bad investment. Yeah, I guess you could say that. I do phrase it. I literally say that on sales calls. My job is to protect your money, hard-earned money. But that's someone else. That's good.
No,
No, I will literally say, I'll literally tell them that. Look, okay, that your dollars are working for you, and I will defend it. That you're probably here because you can't defend it yourself. That's why you need my help. So let's just make sure we're doing the right thing together. And if it is, let's make sure that money isn't wasted in some bank account somewhere. That's also not defending your money, is it?
Okay, amazing. Thank you. My building is going to close. That's why it was ringing. So thank you all and see you next week.
Cheers, boss. Justin, your turn.
Awesome. So I have a question for all three of you guys. And I want just your honest thoughts, right? If you were to label these three kind of things from like the most important to least important, what would it be and why? And it's gonna be discipline, consistency, and motivation. What would you say most important, least important that you see working for yourself? What are they and kind of why?
That's a great question.
Isn't
Caleb,
discipline and
yeah.
consistency pretty much the same thing?
No, because you could be consistently bad at something, but discipline is like kind of you bettering yourself. I mean, the way I see it is, I see consistency as you could be consistently good, building good habits, and you could be consistently bad, building bad habits. For me, I think discipline is you kind of holding yourself accountable to know what's best for you, no matter if it's or like this decision you want to be making or the decision that needs to be made. That's the way I think of it. That's why I want to get your guys' thoughts on it, because this is the way I see it. And I kind of use this kind of mentality a bit, but I want to get your thoughts.
Let's go, Josh, Jay, Daniel, and Caleb in that order.
Sure.
Yeah, Josh, shake hands. So, yeah.
Sure. Well, that's a great question. Consistency to me is number one, because you cannot, like, there's nothing you could do to beat me because I've been doing it for so much longer and so much further. Just like Kobe Bryant, same thing, right? He worked out probably 2-3 times a day. Everyone else was working out once a day. Even if it was a crappy workout, at some point, I'm exponentially growing faster than you. I've seen people that are so undisciplined and they will kick my butt in the ring because they've just been doing it consistently for longer, right? So consistency. Then if you want to increase the speed and the quality, discipline's next. And then motivation. I don't think any of us here need motivation. Now, it's great to have it. But if you need motivation that's external, people will run rings around you in the real world. When it comes down to it, if you're facing off against someone that's doing it because that's how they're built to do it, right? If I'm motivated to swim versus going against a fish that's built to swim, fish is going to win every time. Now, you can transform who you are, become built to swim with consistency and with discipline. So that's my answer, if that makes sense.
That's solid. So for me, that's interesting because the way I see it, discipline is willpower, right? It's literally every time you use your discipline, you're using like the glucose in your brain, which can be measured, right? Motivation doesn't take willpower. Motivation is something that you can actually hack using systems, right? So you find things that really get you going. You look at your vision, right? Like just motivation is something that allows you to build momentum, right? And it's something external that you can learn around, right? So it's kind of like fire. And then consistency is more result that comes from creating systems around motivation and around discipline. Because if you're just disciplined all the time, there's going to be times where you fall off, you have a bad day, like things just break, right? So another analogy, right? Have you ever felt like you're forcing yourself to work versus work is in flow and it just feels great, right? I believe that you can create that state, right? If you really get into alignment with like the vision you have, the things you want to build, you're not using willpower, right? But you gotta have discipline for when you're not in that state, you still get shit done. Because at the end of the day in business, all that matters is did you get shit done? So that's my view on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I think my response kind of goes between the two. My first snap was the same as what Josh had, which is consistency, discipline, motivation. But I think it just depends on what the context is. I think if you're starting something new, you need motivation to like spark the behavior change. Because yeah, it's a really good quote. Like you can be consistently inconsistent. So to like get yourself to kick gears, you need something to move you over. That's going to be motivation. Motivation lasts long enough, and usually you stay disciplined when you're motivated by something, so those two kind of feed into each other to eventually where you're consistent. But it depends. Like if you're in a business, there comes a point where it's like yeah, I'm kind of motivated to start something, and I'll be disciplined about it, and then eventually consistency sets in, and your discipline supports consistency and motivation fades. But there's almost nothing that I work on now that is like inherently motivating. Like a lot of the stuff I do is it's very boring, it's very mundane. But I think it's like the feeling of consistency is nice. When you can look back after 3, 6, 12 months and just see how far you've come as a product of being consistent. And to echo Josh's point, it's like it's like I know plenty of people that have made money in the internet space who by no means are like, you've got a lot of common knowledge out there that you need to be perfect in all realms and all areas of your life to make a lot of money. And I've just not really seen that to be true. There's plenty of people that are just messes everywhere, but they've gotten really good at one thing for a long period of time and they just have a ton of money. And then everything else is just a complete mess. They're terrible at relationships, health is all over the place, finances are wild, but they're still doing like 150, 200K. They're doing numbers that are just like unheard of. So yeah, consistency, discipline, and motivation. I think if motivation fades, you won't be motivated most days. So
Nice stuff, Mr. Julian.
Yeah, well, thank you guys for this call. Pleasure to meet you, Josh, Jay again, and Kaleb. I met you guys before. Josh, this question is for you eventually because I kind of interested because you have multiple businesses. Have you failed one of those or almost failed? And if so, what was the reason? What was the biggest lesson that you learned from there?
Yeah, that's great. I've failed at more businesses. Well, the reason I succeed is because I've failed at more businesses than most people try. That's just how it goes, right? So I try and I try and I try and I've failed a lot. Most of my failures came from 3 things. One was the lack of a real strategy. Now, plan is one thing, but a strategy is different because I will always have the end goal in mind and I can adjust the plan. But if I'm stuck on the plan, when you have a plan till the bullets start flying, things change. I didn't have a strategy. I didn't know what I wanted to, how I wanted to accomplish it. That failed. The most important mistake I ever made was picking the wrong people. Right? If you pick the wrong people and put them in places of leadership, and you yourself don't have a strong company culture, or at least know who you are, I know exactly what I represent and how things get done, and then the thing all falls apart. And one bad partnership can ruin a decade of business. So pick your people very wisely. But before you can pick people well, you have to pick yourself well. You have to know who you are, what you stand for, how to do it well. So those 2 things specifically. And the third thing was just, I guess, not focusing on the right activities, not lift activities. I now focus everything on just 3 things. Can I drive leads? Can I retain those leads? And can I have a system that operates itself without me being there? That's it. That's it. All these other stuff about like the branding for the business or extra streams of income for the business, it's secondary to that. But that's as simple as business is. So, and it really starts with knowing who your client, your customer is too, which is sales. Again, right? Psychology. Those I've definitely failed a lot. The biggest failure I ever made was I was making the business I had was doing like 120, 130,000 a month. It was going well. I brought on this entire team. It was going very, very well. It was a financial services business. And I didn't account for the fact that the government could screw up my business. So the government came along and said, actually, all these checks, we're going to put a hold on for about 9 months. Problem was I didn't plan for this thing. So I already had a big team. I had to pay them out of my own pocket. And I lost hundreds of thousands of dollars. I had to shut the business down. Even though on paper, I'd made over multiple millions of dollars. I had to shut it down. And that was really bad because I let a lot of people down. And then all my clients got let down. My entire job was to get money back for them from the government. That was the business at the time. And the government was like, awesome, cool, we'll get back to you in 9 months. I was like, oh, shoot. And like, fuck. So yeah, never over leverage yourself. Plan for things. Don't scale too quickly. Know these things before you scale, because making a lot of money does not mean you're making a lot of money. So yeah, that was a bad failure. That sucked.
Gotcha. And I have another question now that you say it. Having multiple business, I guess that maybe can be a deal for you or kind of a challenge. How is your decision-making process with it? Like, I know for having a business, maybe 1 or 2, it can be easier, but having multiple ones, how is that for you?
Right. Again, very strategic. Very strategic. Everything is on a master plan. So every single move is helping me out 50 years from now. I have a 24-year plan. So everything I'm doing now will help me 24 years from now. Beyond that, I'll make another one. So every business I have now, I'm literally thinking, do the clients of this business also need this other service? And more specifically, if I rolled all these up, could I sell this whole thing together? More specifically, the skills I can teach here, who have I been training already that I can plug into all these businesses? So I set up the chessboard a long time ago. And so now I can go and acquire 10 businesses and it's fine, if that makes sense. So it's not like every business is completely new. I already know what's next on my list. I already know what I want to acquire next. I have my targets. I know who my competitors and enemies are. I know exactly who my allies are. we can make real plays here together, right? So if that answers that question.
Thank you.
Chess
Yeah.
not checkers. Mr. Georgie, you're muted just a little bit. Or you don't know, you haven't connected your audio. I cannot hear you.
Still no.
Still nothing.
A point that I wanted to make, going back to the question that was just asked prior while he's sorting the audio there, is I think a great like microcosm for learning how to hire talent, and Josh, I'd be curious to get your take on it, is if you're a closer that's wanting to get into like these upper realms of business, spend some time as a manager and hire out closers, and you will sometimes be amazed at how well people will interview, how well they'll sell you on like their character traits and all that stuff, and then come in the job and completely flop. That was the first time that I kind of learned like, oh, you have to kind of size people beyond a bit more than how they present themselves. I'm still kind of figuring out the whole hiring good talent thing, like good relationships. I think I'm still so biased from my days as a closer that I just like people who are like me. But you have to be comfortable with people that like you can't control and are completely different from you. And those will naturally be the people that you don't want to hire, because it's like, well, they're, how do I have rapport with this person? Are they really going to respect me? So do some time as a manager. You'll hire plenty of people that you'll have 10 out of 10 conviction in that will flop. And you'll also hire people that are like, well, we have to fill the role, so we'll bring them in, and then they might become your top performer. So, but yeah, I'd be curious, Josh, if you have any input on that too. But that was the first place I kind of started to get a grip on that.
That's such a good topic. I would love to chat with you too, by the way. I love this kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Chat.
I just followed you on Instagram, so yeah.
No, that's awesome. I'll call you back. I guess my only take on that, and I'll keep it brief, but my take on that is simple. I have to narrow it down to like the three main things that I need outside of the skill sets and outside of do I like them. One of them is just straight up, is there a baseline level of emotional IQ? Is that there? If it's not there, no matter how skilled they are, I can't really teach them that. That's the one thing I can't teach. The next thing is actual problem-solving IQ, which is different than normal IQ. Can they solve a problem? And I'll give them little problems on these interviews and stuff. And even during the first couple of weeks, so I can figure out, can you actually solve this on your own? Do you want to solve it on your own? And more specifically, are you built to solve it on your own? Like I said, I'm looking for fish that naturally know how to swim. Those two things save me a lot of time, because everyone at this level can sell me on how good a closer they are. I'm sure you deal with that too, because everyone probably wants to work for you. So they're like, yeah, I can do this and this and this. It's really hard. So I try to figure out the emotional IQ side and the actual problem-solving IQ side, and then their actual ambitions as well. Like, is there something beyond this? Because if there's not, usually they peter out with 3 to 6 months. So that's something I've seen.
Yeah, I think that's a huge one, is actually the problem-solvingness. I'm realizing now that it's like, you can find people that are good problem solvers, and it's also even harder to find people that are comfortable and confident picking directions for projects and being able to see them through. Like, I've realized that I'm the only one now, at least in what I operate with, that is like can pick a strategic direction and see that all the way through. Like, be nice if someone else could just like have conviction in your bets. I can't be the only one that flows from the top. But these are all some good stuff. So
yeah, that's why you're in charge.
Yeah,
this is tough.
Mr. Georgia asks, how can we be different from the competition? What makes someone unique? Question for all three. You can go the same order if you want, Josh, JD, Kaleb.
I wish his audio worked so I could ask him, because it really depends on what you mean by different than the competition. It's so funny. For me, usually I actually try and persuade people, not persuade people, because I never try and do that. It's like I try and tell people that we're all about the same. At a certain level, McDonald's is going to be the same as Wendy's, is going to be the same as Burger King. So everyone else is trying to convince you that I'm the best for you. I'm the best investment. I'm the best person to go with. I'm like, hey, look, at some point, we're all about the same. And if you're hungry, you should just eat something. And I'm here. So what is the right thing to do? So rather than standing out from competition, I'm having people choose the right thing versus the best thing. On top of that, no one can really compete with your stories. If you're a good storyteller, and the stories that you've gone through, I can't compete with that because I didn't live your life, if that makes sense. So if we're competing for stats and numbers, I would change the frame. I'm not going to talk about the stats and numbers that I have. I want to talk about an experience that shows you that I can be an extension of you. Because everybody really wants a genie. They just want to know, can you get my wish done for me? Because I'd rather not go through this with you, right? If I can be that versus saying I'm competing on stats, so I have this many testimonials, or close this many dollars, or if we're competing on that, there's always going to be a bigger fish. I'm going to change the frame. I want to play a completely different game. We're all about the same. What matters to you is, do you trust me to be an extension of you? And if that's the case, then what is the right thing to do today? I hope that makes sense. That works for sales or interviews or business. Kind of generic.
JD.
That's so good. Yeah, it's very interesting, right? Because you could do the little, I have this much experience and, XYZ trait, right? And those will work sometimes, but literally what Josh said, and to add to that, it's a lot of the things you don't say that really ring true with these guys. So like, if you okay, here's something you can do. If you look at their website and you see that their mission is XYZ and their vision is XYZ, ABC, these are the core values. This is what they say on their website. Like that's all the owner thinks about, right? They probably paid 10 grand for that website. I better have my fucking vision on there, right? So that's what they're thinking. Also get in their head. If you can do enough research, think of this like you're just before a sales call to understand what they value, and then you can tell a story that showcases you being able to give them that value, right? Now, whatever you say about yourself doesn't matter because you're solving their problem. You can just pick 3 random things that speed of implementation. I can follow a process. I can do this, right? But it doesn't matter because it's just like, are you able to help them get their vision? And if they believe that, you're hired on the spot. That's like, if you can communicate that in just regular conversations with people, you'll find yourself landing dope roles without having to do an interview.
We have Mr. Justin, Mr. Juliano. We'll wrap it up. Let's go.
Awesome. So I have 2 questions, one for both of you guys and then one for Josh, if that's okay. So first one for both is like, if you had to train someone to be the top 1% salesperson in just 30 days, what would make them focus on?
You want to go, J. Daniel, or me?
You got it, Josh. I'll go after.
You want me to go here? Okay, so a couple things. If I were to train them, so it's like I'm working with you, right? You're on my offer. Is that the premise? Because I'm like, normally if I'm working with you, I tell you, just listen to your sales manager, study your CEO. Study your CEO, study their marketing. If you're working for me, then my style is I handle all my objections in the first 20 minutes. I do not handle objections at the end, ever. I try, and I can, but usually, and that's something that a lot of people don't like. But I'm telling you, this is the difference between 25% close rate and 88% close rate. I handle this. I would also focus on switching your paradigm, your entire shift from I'm going to sell you this product to I'm here to defend your money. I'm the only thing standing between you and that company that's going to take your money. I work for that company. They hired me to make sure that I protect your investment. If I could switch that frame for you, I promise you your close rate's not only going to increase, you're going to get recurring sales. These people are going to come back to you over and over. You're going to get a lot of these people coming back with referrals as well. So that's the first thing I do. And the second thing is I handle all objections in discovery. And I'm the one giving them the objections. It's called the amygdala, the fear center of your brain. If I can beat you to that fear center and I can say the objection out loud, you are more naturally inclined to see me as your protector, and you're going to have all that resistance wash away. So I'm going to list them out before you even list them. I'm going to tell you, maybe we should think about it. Is there someone that you need to talk to? How do you know this is the right move? My competitor down the road also does the same thing. At the same time, too, I could send you 50 testimonials. How do you know I didn't deep fake that with AI? And if your answer isn't, I will take that risk, Josh, I still need to do this, then I don't think you're ready to buy this thing. And now they're going to sell me on why they need to do this. I'm telling you, it's not even a trick. It's just actual investment help. I could train you that. That's what we would do. And your close rate will skyrocket because these people are investors now. They're not prospects. They're investors. Hope that makes sense. There's a lot more I could dive into. Like seeing people, I won't go too much into it. And JD, you should answer this too. But what I look for in discovery is really, really simple. I look for who they think that they are. Who do they see themselves to be? Who are they telling me that they are? How do they want me to see them? So oftentimes the strong person who's a tough prospect is actually not on the inside. Right? If I'm like, hey, get to the pitch, you're probably really nervous. So I know both those things. And then I also know who you want to be one day. If I can hit all 3 of those things, there is no way that you're not seeing me as the next best investment in your life. And that is a skill to learn. So not enough time to dive into that. Yeah.
100%. I had a guy, it's crazy to say that, Josh. I had a guy, this is a couple days ago, and he literally sent a message before the call saying, look, I don't want to do any of that discovery stuff. Cut to the chase. My time is valuable. Spent 2 hours with this guy. At the end, he's like, thank you so much for your time. The people who are challenging you in that way, they're the ones that need that the most, right? Like if it's crazy. What Josh said is spot on. For me, if I want to get somebody to be top 1% in 30 days, it's 2 things. Number 1, we got to fix your operating system. So like literally vices, like you got to go to bed at the same time every day, minimum, right? Like anything that has to do with instant gratification, it's gone. At the very least, it's managed to like an hour a week, right? And the whole idea is all this dopamine gets you foggy, bro, right? Like you need to move. I need to get you moving and thinking and acting like a top 1% guy. We got to figure out what the vision is for your life. What do you want outside of money, outside of sales, right? If you have a kid and a family, that's super easy, right? But just figure out what you want, right? Because now you're somebody they respect. People buy from people they respect that can lead them. So we'll get all the bullshit, and it's a lot easier to take out than to add, right? So just take all the crap out, right? And then we'll go into that. That's the mental side, and then tactical, and literally exactly what Josh said. Like just start. You have to take into account where people are at in the marketplace right now. You have to come and they have options, bro. They have a lot of options. They do. So how do you have them say like, okay, cool, we're going with Wendy's, we're going with Josh, right? We're going with Justin. To get and one thing too, I would teach you to be self-sufficient because 30 days isn't enough to be top 1%. So you got to learn how to review your calls. Something I recommend is and if there's already killer closers, perfect. But if like not, literally get a Google. It's very tactical. Get a Google Doc, break it into 3 columns, right? And it's like, what did the prospect say? What did the closer say? Whether it's you or the top 1% guy, and why did they say that? And start understanding decision making. Decision making is what differentiates people in life and in sales. And on the call, you're making a million decisions there. So that would be the 30-day course in focus.
That is so good. To quickly add to that, that is so good, Jay Daniel. And in our university, we should share what we do with them. We actually watch the same call over and over. And for me, I'm watching just the first 10 seconds. What can I pick up from that? Where did my prospect's eyes go? What did I say that led her to say, oh, what's her tone of voice? How can I tell when she's opening up versus when she's shutting down? What questions should I have asked? Like I break these calls down. I listen to it on repeat. I've listened to my own calls probably 100 times each. Like no, that's not even an exaggeration. Literally, I will watch it over and over and over as if I'm an athlete studying tape. Down to the point where I'm like, I could close my eyes and know exactly what this person's going to say next. A lot of people don't do it like that. But if you're really a professional at the professional sports level, that's what we do. Right? That's what they teach you to do. We should do it here, and you will be making a lot of money. You'll also be very, very good with people. So that's the final caveat there. Addition there.
100%. I would if you start in an offer, bro, as a closer, it's not a bad idea before you take like live calls that the owner's paying $400 like a call for and putting pressure on you. It's not a bad idea for a week just to call the leads and get a feel for the avatar, right? And then review the calls that you have. Because bro, if you can polish a turd, imagine what you'll do with a diamond, right? Like, if you can play the game at hard mode and kill it, this is what I tell everybody too. Like Josh hears me say this a million times a day, right? But it's like you have to pretend the person that you're talking to is the snarliest, most disgusting, angry, hateful, skeptical person ever. And if you get really good at selling that person, everything else is easy.
Awesome. Now this next question, and JD, you could hop on, if you like. But how do you handle? And I like you mentioned pressure. How do you handle the pressure of not just selling, but like now being responsible for everything else in terms of business wise, like from the front end to the back end. How do you kind of handle that pressure, or like what's kind of a shift that you kind of that you transition into? I guess my.
Yeah. Well, if you want to succeed at anything, the pressure of inaction must be much greater than the pressure of that work you just described. And so for me, if you don't have enough external pressure because your life is good, then great. That's awesome. That means you're also not dreaming big enough. Yeah, so put enough pressure on the goal that the work is easy. Like for me, I could go 16 hours a day because I know that it's going to hurt me much, much more to wake up tomorrow knowing I wasn't who I should have been. So if that answers that question, it's not like a practical answer, but I guess tactically, come up with a very specific target of who you want to be, make it your mission to be that person, and all the work should seem easy. In fact, you'll end up wanting to do it. You'll end up being like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to get another call. I can't wait for someone to tell me no, so I can study that thing. Like I can't wait till I mess up in business now because I'm hungry to learn. I'm hungry to miss a shot so I can never miss that shot again. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. If we're feeling pressure from the work and from the responsibility of the sales, then we're focusing on the wrong thing. We're attaching our identity again to the outcome versus attaching our identity to our consistency, our discipline, and motivation, like you talked about earlier. I hope that makes sense. What do you think, JD?
So it's actually Justin's question, funny enough, goes into it, but and it's okay. So as humans are motivated by two things, right? Pain, or getting away from pain, going to pleasure, right? So part of it is saying, I have this vision, this business I'm running, I have this thing that I'm building, and there's things that have to be done. I don't give a fuck how I feel, what's going on, like they have to be done.
Yep.
So how do I make sure that I have a bulletproof plan that I can't fail, knowing I have all these vulnerabilities? This is why I like what Josh was saying about like knowing yourself and like a therapist, high performance coach, right? Like,
yeah,
you're going to do things to sabotage your progress. If you don't, like, think about this. You've never had the level of success you want, right? Meaning you're not the person, you don't have the habits to do that. So you're going to have a million self-destructive actions and behaviors. So figure out what those are and create systems so they don't happen. Like if you can't wake up early to save your life, call your buddy and say, hey, if I'm not at the gym here, or if I'm not here and sending a picture at 7, I owe you $100. Right? Like just create systems where there's more pain associated to not doing it than it is to just fucking do it. Right? That's a way to be proactive about it. Something else that you can do is leveraging the human being, right? So what I mean by that is like we're very tribal. Your environment has a huge effect on you, right? Upgrade your environment. Move in with people, literally live with people that are playing the game at a higher level.
Yes.
That are already doing the things you want to do. Figure it out, right? You can literally make a PowerPoint presentation and say, hey, here's what we're going to do. Here's the vision. Here's what we can stay. Here's how much we're paying each, right? I promise you, you can move in with some pretty badass people, right? And that alone is going to level you up. So
yep.
those are my recommendations.
That's a great answer. Does that answer that for you, Justin?
Yeah, appreciate it.
Bro, by the way, I literally lost 40 pounds like 2 months ago. And it's because I moved in with literally Colombia. We got a penthouse for 3 months, bro. Right? And literally it was me and I think everybody there besides me, 3 of the guys there were pro athletes. Like I was the one without the 6-pack. At the end of it, we all had 6-packs, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, works.
Birds of feather flock together.
It's true.
Mr. Julian, let's wrap it up with you.
Yeah, a question that I have, because you said this, in a higher level when you're a business owner, Josh, is I've been talking with a lot of business owners in the past though, and then the way that they network, the way that they connect with people, it's different, right? I would like to understand, is there any kind of take that you have or you both have in terms of that? Like, how you network with someone when you have business goals? Like, for example, let's say that you have a business goal that you have to be completed to the end of the year, and you have to find someone. Like, how you network with this guy? Do you get someone? Do you delegate this task, or do you do this by your own? And if so, like, how you do all that?
That's a good question. So there could be a whole masterclass in its own. Could be. Is there an echo here? Is it mine? Okay. So yeah, I would say that the way to network, the difference is like at the bottom, people are networking like super needy. Like you can tell they're trying to get something from you. At the top, we network because we're always trying to give opportunity. It is so much open sharing up here. And I'm not even at the top. I'll tell you that right now. I'm at the very, very bottom of a very big pond, right? Because I'm not even in New York. I'm not even in that financial industry, right? But at this level, it's much more genuine. Straight up, I'm really like, hey, Jay Daniel, love the thing you're building, man. I love what you're building with that university. I bet there's people in my network that would love what you're teaching. We should get a drink or we should get dinner sometime and just talk business. There's got to be some way that we could build this empire together. That's usually how those conversations go. And usually it always ends up sharing, and I usually get what I want. Because it's just like a straight up like, okay, awesome, let's do this, right? It's how that goes. Versus at the bottom, I've noticed a lot of the networking is like a, hey, if you wouldn't mind just a second of your time, I would love to give you an offer. I'm already like, oh my God. Oh my God, I know it's coming. Some kind of a pitch because you want me to feed you, basically. You want my money. That's what you want, or you want an opportunity from me. Versus at the top, we're constantly like, did you check this thing out, by the way? There's this conference coming up. We should go to that. You should check this one out. Or have you met Taylor? Or have you met this person? Have you met Philip? You should hop on a chat with Phil. Let me connect you to someone out of value. We become each other's genies at this level, if that makes sense. What do you think, Jay Daniel? You do a lot more networking now than I do.
Everybody's favorite radio station is WIIFM, right? What's in it for me? Like it's actually very similar to landing roles. What's their mission? What's their vision? What are they looking for? You know, what do they need to get there? Give that to them. Here, you know, because you got to realize everything comes back to understanding somebody's psychology, though, right? Like humans in general. Because if you know what they want, right, it's just they like the people that are helping them get closer to what they want, the people they feel like they can relate to, you know. So this idea of value is subjective based on that. So once you figure that out, it's pretty intuitive.
Hey, stuff. So guys, where can everyone reach you and find what you do?
Okay, Daniel.
Yeah, just J Daniel Castro on pretty much all platforms. Instagram, Facebook, YouTube are going to be the most active.
Yeah. Same for me,
OnlyFans, bro.
Josh Pineda official on Instagram and Facebook. I'm the most active there.
Yeah.
Most active there.
I don't know why I asked these questions. I'm gonna drop the links in the chat regardless, but yeah, it's just kind of nice to ask. Everyone, it was a banger session if you ask me. Let me know in the DMs your thoughts, and I'll send you a YouTube link. Take care and see you at the top. Cheers.
This was helpful. Good stuff, Phil.
All right, guys. Everybody had a good one.
Cheers.
Get it.